Hi, my name is Phil Robinson. I wrote and directed the films Field of Dreams and Sneakers.
And I'm David Twohy. David Twohy, I wrote The Fugitive this year.
And this can be a very cruel place, and it's a cruel place that attracts lots of people who want to make it here. And there are talented people who never get a chance. There are untalented people who do. Life's unfair, and Hollywood is no exception to that. I generally don't encourage people to get into the movie business because I think there's enough encouragement out there. I think what you need is a little dash of cold water once in a while to realize if you don't really, really, really feel that you have to be in this business, do something else. Do yourself a big favor. Find something that you love and do something else, because it can be very cruel and it's real tough, and most people never get a shot. The first thing I would say is start with story and decide then what is the most appropriate way to tell that story. It may not be a film or a TV show. The story you have may be much better suited for a book, for a play, a short story. Work from that standpoint and then decide how you want to develop that.
I would say several things to new writers. One is that the secret to writing is writing. But I mean, a lot of people have great ideas. Every time I take a taxi cab ride to the airport, I run into a guy in the front seat who's got a great idea, but the only problem is that he can't put it down on paper. Unless you can put it down on paper and execute the story, then you're not a writer. Then you're not a screenwriter, and you'll never have a chance of being a screenwriter. So what you got to do is like set office hours. And one of the main problems that people have is that they're waiting for the inspiration to strike them to write. And you can't do that in this business. You've got to set office hours, and you've got to put it in 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day of writing. And only then can you call yourself a writer, and only then can you turn that story into something that is marketable out there. And
how did you break in?
Just by writing 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day and being just doggedly persistent.
Did you always want to be a writer?
Yeah, a writer. I always wanted to be a director, so I saw writing as the avenue to directing. So, I mean, it's an obvious avenue, and it's... and I just did it, you know? And you got to write like you have no mother, too, is what I found out. You know, it's just like you can't try to please the people in the past. You just have to write from your heart and from your soul and all of it.
Your first desire to be a writer, was it to be a film writer? Or as a kid, were you writing stories? Or?
Yeah, I took a short story class, and there was a teacher who took me aside and said, you know what, there may be something here. And that was all I needed to go off and just like be a writer at that point. So it's like I was looking for that one moment of encouragement. I got it, and I was off to the races. What about you?
I always wrote. As a little kid, I'd go to my room and write stuff. And I never actually wanted to be a writer, but I wound up becoming a journalist because I was interested in current affairs and politics. And I realized after a while that the reason I was doing that is because I just loved writing. And at a certain point, I sort of went into documentaries and then educational TV, and I wound up making these little films. And then I thought, well, as long as I'm going to make films, I should try to go the next step. I should try to get into TV or features. And I usually don't have original ideas for stories. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's what I'm best at. I think I'm good at seeing something in a story that I think I can adapt or shape.
Field of Dreams was a novel first?
It was a novel by a Canadian author. And
called something else?
It was called Shoeless Joe.
Right.
And a lot of people who read it said, I love this book, but you can't make a movie out of it. And I just thought, it seems to me like you can make a movie out of this.
Had anybody tried to make a movie out of it? Tried to write a script on it before you?
No, I was the first dumb one. I was the dumbest one to take a crack at it when everybody else was saying it can't be done. Oh, you will never have a better learning experience than in your salad days, when there's no money, when there's not enough money to do it right, there's not enough equipment to do it right, you don't have the right people, you have no support, you have to do it yourself. You will learn more about editing, props, music, camera, lighting, scheduling, you name it. It's the best. And when you get to the point, if you're lucky enough to get to the point where bigger and bigger productions are being made of your scripts, you will find as a writer you become less and less involved in that unless you become a director or producer.
Yeah, it's a good primer in guerrilla warfare, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think every production devolves and breaks down into guerrilla filmmaking at a certain time. So it's a good primer for that, but it's not necessarily an entree into Hollywood. I mean, just because you're making that film, that $5,000, $10,000 student film, doesn't mean that Hollywood is going to open up its arms for you. You may want to have something else to back you up with that, and you may want to have a solid script. A script and a movie ain't a bad idea to have.
Hello, my name is David Koepp. I'm a screenwriter. I wrote the screenplay for the movie The Paper, The Shadow, and I co-wrote screenplays for Jurassic Park and Death Becomes Her, and Carlito's Way, some movies of the last couple of years. So some of you want to write for film and television. I think that's a great thing. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was a wonderful thing to do, and an admirable pursuit. I think by far the hardest part of writing for film, since that's what I do, is writing the screenplay itself. Everything else, the business end, the agents and producers and all that kind of thing, will sort of sort itself out and will seem easy by comparison to the act of writing a good screenplay. There aren't very many people who write good screenplays. There are just precious few of them in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. I had a screenwriting professor at UCLA who used to say, if you write a good screenplay, you could leave it in the middle of a freeway. Somebody would find it, pick it up, produce it, and probably screw it up. Which I think is true. There just is not a lot of good material out there. So concern yourself with writing good characters, writing a well-structured piece of work, and just beat your brains out writing the screenplay, and the business end will sort of sort itself out. I think what will separate your screenplay from all the other mediocre ones out there is how much of you put into it. And to my mind, that's the good news, is because the most individual and precious thing you have going for you is yourself. You're a bundle of experiences and feelings that no one else has. And the more of yourself you can put into your work, the more you write about things that you really care about, instead of writing about things that you think other people will care about, or you think other people will want to see, or are like other movies that people have seen, the more you will be distinguished and made individual. And that's really, with all the material out there that there is to read, that's really the thing that everyone looks for, is something individual and something special. And I think, to me, that's truly comforting, because to know that there's no one like you, and there's no one who can write what you can write.
Hi, my name is Anne Kenney. I'm a writer, co-producer on LA Law. I've worked on LA Law for about 3 seasons. I wrote for Civil Wars, which was another law show, and I started out by writing for a sitcom called The Pursuit of Happiness. Well, I mean, I think that they should, in terms of writing, they should be thinking about what's important to them, what they want to say, so that you can write from that place. I think that it's hard to try to write to what we call writing to the market, that you think, oh, well, like a movie, oh, well, they're making this kind of movie now. If I write that kind of movie, they'll make it, unless it's something that you really feel strongly about. And the same with TV shows. There'll be a lot of one thing, and then somebody will do something like Northern Exposure, and that's different, and then everybody wants to do Northern Exposure. So I think it's important to have faith in the things that you're interested in and that mean something to you, and to write about that sort of thing.
How did you get your lucky break?
Actually, I was a journalist, which I think is a great background for a writer. It helped me to listen to people. It helped me to hear how people talk. So I've used that a lot when I'm writing scripts. And actually, I got my lucky break. I read an article about a man named Michael Whitehorn, who was from Long Island, and it was in the Long Island newspaper. And I was still living in New York, and the article said that he would read unsolicited manuscripts. And so I wrote him a letter. He was out here in Hollywood. He used to write for Family Ties, and he had a new show on. And I wrote him a letter and asked him if he would read my script, which he did. And then he didn't like the show I wrote for a Newhart spec, but he said he would read another script. And I sent him another script, and in the interim moved to California, and about 3 months later he hired me to write on a sitcom. So it was quite a lucky break, it really was. But based on that, I would encourage kids to not feel like the only way you can do it is, oh, I've got to get an agent and I have to do this. I would encourage you to pursue whatever avenue. If you know somebody, if you read something about somebody, I mean, well, all they can do is say no. So write them a letter, try to make a phone call, whatever, because you can get in any number of ways.